You know the feeling, right? You make a big resolution. You're going to eat better, you're going to quit smoking, you're going to be a new person, and then a few weeks later, you're right back where you started. So why is it so ridiculously hard to break a bad habit? Well, today we're going to dig into exactly that, and we'll do it by mixing some really ancient wisdom with what modern psychology tells us today. I mean, it's got to be one of the most frustrating things about being human. You give it your all, you commit to a change, you're doing great, and then, boom, you slip up, and suddenly you're sliding all the way back to square one. It's that classic yo-yo effect, and it makes you feel like your willpower is just broken. But what if it's not about willpower at all? What if something else is going on?
And get this is not a new problem. This question right here, it comes from the Kṣitigarbha Sutra, an ancient Buddhist text. It just goes to show you that for literally centuries, people have been asking the same thing. Why do I get myself out of a bad situation only to walk right back into it? It kind of puts our struggle with scrolling on our phones into a much, much bigger perspective, doesn't it?
So to figure this out, these ancient thinkers didn't use terms like cognitive bias. Nope. They actually personified these inner struggles. They called them ghost kings, these really powerful forces inside our own minds that are constantly trying to pull us off track. Let's meet the three big ones, the ones that are basically running the show when it comes to our bad habits. Okay, first up, we have the king of exhaustion. Just think about all the mental energy that gets vaporized by worrying about stuff you can't change, or by doom scrolling for hours, or chasing that temporary high from an addiction. This king is the master of wasting our most precious resource, our energy. He leaves us feeling completely drained, way too tired to even think about doing the things that would actually make our lives better. Next is the king of disease, and this one is fascinating because it perfectly describes the mind-body connection. This is the force that takes all our internal junk, our stress, our anger, our sadness, and turns it into actual physical sickness. It's how chronic stress can lead to headaches or stomach problems. This king is proof that what happens in your head doesn't stay in your head. It shows up in your body. And rounding out our trio is the king of peril. This is the part of us that's drawn to danger, even when we know we're going to get hurt. It's the impulse that pushes us toward gambling or risky investments or staying in a relationship that we know is just plain toxic. It's that self-destructive voice that loves the thrill, ignoring all the red flags waving in our face. So after hearing about these three, you might be thinking, great, I'm doomed. But here's the beautiful part. The goal isn't to go to war with these kings and destroy them. Instead, the wisdom here is that you can learn to manage them. You can tame that chaotic energy and actually transform it. That anxious energy, it can become careful planning. That addictive drive, it can become incredible focus and passion. They can go from being your enemies to being your protectors. Okay, so we've met our inner demons. But why do they still have so much power? Why do we keep falling back into their traps, even when we know better? Now let's shift gears and look at the modern psychology behind this yo-yo effect, because you're about to see how perfectly it lines up with this ancient wisdom. Now this slide, this is where it all just clicks. It's like a Rosetta Stone for habit change. What ancient texts called forgetting or gyonmang, modern psychology calls memory suppression. And what they called karmic inertia, basically the momentum of your past actions, science now calls deeply ingrained neural pathways. It's the exact same idea, just separated by a couple thousand years and some different vocabulary. So it all starts with forgetting. See, our brain has a primary mission: protect us from pain. So once we've kicked a bad habit, our brain, in its own weird way, tries to do us a favor. It starts to dull the memory of how awful it really was. That crushing hangover, the shame you felt, the money you lost, it all gets fuzzy. The brain remembers the quick hit of pleasure, but conveniently forgets the long, drawn-out suffering that followed. And that's when it happens. Because you've forgotten how bad it was, a tiny, seemingly innocent thought pops into your head. You know, maybe I could handle just one. It's different now. Just one more time won't hurt. And that right there, that's the little lie we tell ourselves. It's the seductive whisper that gets us to take that first step right back into the maze we worked so hard to escape. It really can feel like a hopeless, endless cycle. But it's not. The source material doesn't just diagnose the problem. It gives us a clear two-part strategy to actually break free. There are two keys we need, and if we use them, we can get out of the maze for good. The first key is realizing that you probably can't do it alone. The momentum of those old habits, those deep grooves in our brain, is just too powerful sometimes. We need an external lifeline. Now, this could be a mentor or a teacher. It could be the structure you get from therapy. It could even be the wisdom you find in a book. The point is, it's an outside force that can reach in and pull you out of the mud when you're just too stuck to do it yourself. And the second key is all about the internal work. Once you're on solid ground, you have to build self-awareness. And honestly, this is just classic cognitive behavioral therapy. Step 1, you have to watch yourself like a scientist with no judgment. Just observe the pattern. Step 2, pinpoint the exact trigger. What's the feeling, the time of day, the place that kicks the whole cycle off? And then, step 3, this is the most important one, you learn to pause. Right at that moment, right at the entrance to that bad habit, you create a little space and you make a different choice. So we've got the keys, but how do we make sure we don't lose them and end up locked back in the maze? How do we make this change actually last? Well, this final piece of the puzzle is all about how you maintain that momentum and find some real, sustainable hope in the journey. There are 2 super practical things we need to do. First, redesign your environment. You can't expect to change if you're surrounded by all your old triggers. So fill your space, your schedule, and your social circle with things and people that support the new you. And second, do a daily review. Whether you journal for 5 minutes or just meditate, you have to consciously remember why you changed. Remember the pain of the old way. This keeps those warning lights on in your brain so that dangerous forgetting can't creep back in.
And this leads us to what is, I think, the most profound message in all of this. The ancient texts say that our deepest, darkest struggles, the things we're most ashamed of, are not a life sentence. They're actually the raw material for our greatest wisdom. They can become the very ingredients for our enlightenment. It means your biggest flaw isn't something to be eliminated. It's something to be transformed into your greatest strength.
So, as we wrap up, the final question is really for you. Take a second and think about it. Which of those kings did you recognize inside yourself? The king of exhaustion, of disease, or of peril? And more importantly, what's one small step you could take, maybe even today, to start transforming that energy? How will you begin to turn your biggest challenge into your greatest asset?